I come from a less advantaged background and I still made it. Everyone's got unfair advantages. My unfair advantage was that I got into Goldman's. But I realized when I was there weren't people like me there as well. Simple rule for anyone working, like look at your seniors, people 5, 10, 15 years ahead of you. If there's anyone that's inspiring and inspirational and you look at and you're like, yeah, I want to be like that person, then stay in your seat, you're on that trajectory, right? And truth be told, a lot of students want to go into finance because it pays lots. If you don't love it, you're not going to climb. It's simple as that.
Hello and welcome back to Cutting Edge. In today's episode, we're joined by Afzal Hussein, a former finance professional turned content creator and entrepreneur. Afzal's journey began with a series of internships across the likes of BlackRock and EDF Trading before landing a prestigious role in Goldman Sachs asset management. Today, he's the founder of several career-focused platforms and a successful YouTube channel.
My role, the way I see it on these platforms, is to demystify the world of finance for these young people. Because I've got all this knowledge, let me just share it, because what good is it going to do up here, right? And no one in the industry was doing it at the time. It got to a point where I was going into work and I was like, what the flip am I doing here?
Join us as we uncover Afzal's unconventional career path, as he chose to pivot away from his job in finance to explore new horizons in content creation and entrepreneurship. As a self-proclaimed serial planner, Afzal reveals the meticulous strategy he used to position himself as a first mover within finance content creation. Now, let's get started. It's good to have the likes of yourself come in and actually, almost lift a veil over what people thought was very difficult, impossible, but they're making it more accessible. And it would be really cool to get your take on what is it about that made you lean towards starting. I think first of all it was a CV consultant business, and then eventually other platforms. But what was it that made you go, you know what, I can really make a difference in finance and help others?
Yeah, I mean, that's the main, that's exactly it. My role, the way I see it on these platforms, is to demystify the world of finance for these young people. It started off, so a bit of background, I grew up in a council estate in central London, single parent household, grew up on free school meals, all of that. And so it's rare, if you look around, I didn't see anyone, from the area or any of my friends, peers, cousins, whatever, get into the Goldman Sachs or, banking, right? So when someone, when I got in from my background, got into Goldman's, it was like, oh, wow, I'm here. Am I even meant to be here? All these people went to LSE, Oxford, Cambridge. They come from more or less. I come from a less advantaged background and I still made it. But I realized when I was there weren't people like me there as well. And so I thought, you know what, it would be cool, because I know if I can do it, there's lots of kids in there, where I come from, that can get in. But I thought they don't know how to do it. So I've got the internet, let me leverage that and help people break in. So that's where the YouTube idea came from. I was like, all right, if I just post one video a week for a year, zero expectations, just telling people how to break into this industry, because I've got all this knowledge, let me just share it, because, what good is it going to do up here, right? And no one in the industry was doing it at the time because of compliance, or because in general, people just don't have time or can't be bothered. But for me, I had a chip on my shoulder, right? So I thought one video a week, let me do that. Started doing that. And it was my unfair advantage. Everyone's got unfair advantages. My unfair advantage was that I got into Goldman's. Goldman's is prestigious. It's got that big brand name. So when you say Goldman's, people turn their heads. So when I put out the first video or first few, it was like how to get into Goldman Sachs, how I got an internship at Goldman Sachs. And it caught people's attention. Now, keep in mind, when I was doing that, I also had 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. And it was the right type of followers because they were interested in the content I was producing. So I leveraged LinkedIn to promote the videos, and then it started gaining traction. And then I grew to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube pretty fast. Then I was like, oh, and then I started getting paid. You hit a few, I think it's 4,000 subscribers. No, 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch time hours. Then you start getting paid. Then I was like, oh, there might be a business opportunity here kind of thing. So it's kind of just to help people break in. And then obviously, as that went on, I realized, oh, this is a business opportunity as well.
Sure.
So that was it.
It'd be really useful to deconstruct that journey you went on as well, and also going back to the why finance. And when did you first hear about the industry, and what is it that appealed to you and ended up making you apply to the
Yeah.
likes of Goldman Sachs?
Yeah, so funny story. After I did my so I was a good student, used to mess about but get my grades right. Did GCSEs, did all right, and then I left my sixth form, went to college. New environment, wasn't really, my head wasn't screwed on, and I did maths, physics, biology, and geography, A levels, and I got a D, a E, a U, and a U. And I was like, yeah, my life's over. I'm gonna go home. Mum's gonna slap me up. Luckily, she was quite supportive. She was like, it's not the end of the world. Just, you can figure it out. And obviously, my mum don't know, like, she's not a careers advisor. She don't know, like, she came here. She's focused on raising 5 of us, single parent, income support, all of that. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna leave that college, go to a different sixth form, and just put my head down and study. And then, so I retook a year of A levels. So I kind of took a year back. So I was a year behind everyone at uni. And then I got my A's and B's, what have you. And then I got into Queen Mary University. Now, once I was doing those A levels again, I was like, all right, I need a game plan. What do I want to go into? And I was always wanted to put in a suit and tie and go and work in the city, be like a banker. Didn't really know what that was, or work in finance. And so when I went, my goal was, I know I'm not at LSE or Oxford or Cambridge. I'm at Queen Mary, good uni, Russell Group uni, but I need to stack the deck in my favor when it comes to getting a job in a top bank. And at this time, I never thought Goldman's or JP. I was like, let me just break into operations, back office, and then get my foot in. That's going to pay me 30, 40K. At the time, average salary was 25K-ish. Let me get into the back office and, I could work my way up from there. Went into uni with one goal, to get as much experience as possible. So I did lots of spring weeks, internships and all of that. And then got into Goldman's, converted that. And that's kind of a quick whistle-stop tour, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
And going on the Goldman's route itself, is that something which within Goldman, it was the more asset management side of things?
Yeah.
And so at that time, were you gunning for any particular experience within finance, or were you just so curious and open to all sorts of roles?
Yeah. I had a game plan. Like, everyone was interested in investment banking and trading, yet they didn't even have a clue what these two roles were. Like, your first year students in uni, everyone's just going for the, sexy sounding roles. But I knew I don't want to do those long hours in IBD. I ain't got the brains to do a markets type of role like trading. So I thought, what other front office roles are there? So I did my research, found out about private banking and asset management. And then so my applications were catered towards those types of roles. Having said that, my strategy in the first year was spread my eggs wide. So I did accounting insight week at PwC, converted that into a summer internship. Because my thing, I know beggars can't be choosers. So my thing was, I'm not in a luxury position where I could go, I'm in LSE and I'm getting Goldman IBD offers, for example. I knew I should try and get anything and everything, because I want to graduate with an offer rather than graduate and no job, right? So I got the PwC offer. I did RBS, which is now NatWest, in operations, converted that spring week into a summer internship offer. I had a scholarship from EDF Trading, who were next to our sixth form, reached out to the CEO's assistant, got 1 week on their trading floor. And then I had a mentor at Queen Mary from BlackRock. There was some program going on. I was looking around. No one was like jumping on this opportunity. I thought they were nuts. I jumped on it, converted it into a work experience at BlackRock. And that's when I realized, I want to do asset management. And I got time on the portfolio manager desks, and I got time with the salespeople. And I thought I'm more suited for sales, client relationship management, all of that. So then second year come, and I just applied to asset management and private banking. Got Barclays private banking offer and got Goldman's. I was going to take Barclays because I thought there's no way I'm going to convert Goldman's. But I thought, you know what, let me just go for it. Went for Goldman's, and that's it.
Wow. Did you find there was strength in the variety and diversity of the roles itself you've applied for? Because a lot of applicants will go in and out, M&A, just investment banking.
Yeah.
We'll get to know the ins and outs, the technicals, the industry, but then again, they won't actually have an overview of what a bank does, for example, and how it works in unison. Do you find that not only from a proactive sense of firms going, look at how much experience Afzal has just going into our internship, but also did it help you figure out exactly what you wanted to do sooner than your average candidate going into finance?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Some people, they come into uni and they see all their mates going for one role or, like a top tier firm, and they follow that, and then they get there and they realize they're either really bad at it or it's not what they want to do, or they graduate and they have nothing. So I tell students always, like, focus on having an insurance, a safety net, and then go for all the other stuff, as you wish. For me, it definitely helped me to experience different parts of the banks, or even consulting firms, because it showed me what I don't want to do. So I knew when I went PwC accounting, I thought, this is dead. I don't want to do it. Like, that's my personal, thing. Like, that's my personal view on accounting. In uni, I had a module, I hated it. So I wasn't really interested. Some people might love it, but I'm glad I got to experience it. For trading, I did that, and I saw it was gas and electric trading at EDF Trading. And I thought, this is exciting, it's interesting, but I think it's too technical for me. Asset management, I like public speaking, I like meeting new people, I like building relationships. This might be the one for me. And the best way to find out is do a spring week and then do an internship. And at the end, if you like it, great. If you don't, apply somewhere else. So that was my approach. So it definitely helped.
So you knew as you were doing the process that you were cut out for the world of finance, and that having that full-time role post-university was the direction you were going in.
Yeah, 100%. There wasn't any, at the time, there wasn't any other industry that caught my attention. In this day and age, if I was in uni now, I'll probably look at finance, I'll probably look at the tech world, startups, software engineering, all that kind of stuff. So I tell students now, spread your eggs even wider, because there's a lot of exciting things going on. But yeah, at my time, this was 10 years ago, it was just predominantly finance. And everyone around me was finance focused. Yeah.
Definitely one line of questioning to go towards in terms of everyone was going for similar roles or finance in general.
Yeah.
And even back at York, when you join the Finance Society, and the first few roles that come up are IBD, Big Four consulting, and then exit to private equity. Why do you think it is that so many young undergrads lean towards finance and those roles particularly? And do you think that there are cons to that in not, like you said, spreading your eggs over more baskets?
I think there's a few things. One is herd mentality. If you see everyone around you doing one thing, you're going to do what they're doing. You feel a bit safer. Two is obviously the pay. It's rare to find any other, graduate role that pays more than finance in the front office investment bank. The exit opportunities are great. So there's a number of factors why people go for it. And there's a lot of, like, nowadays it's becoming easier to break in because there's lots of resources out there to leverage to help you break in. So those are the factors. I think nowadays, if you're just focusing on investment banking or breaking into a bank, you're holding yourself back. Because the industry, there's a lot more scrutiny towards it. It's not pre-2008 where it was, bonuses were a lot bigger. And now I think there's a lot more, the world we live in, why would you want to go and work 16 hours on a desk when you could do a lot more exciting work working for like an interesting technology company, or, a company that you care about that's leveraging technology to revolutionize that sector in the world, for example. Yeah. And that's why a lot of people go into banking, they realize it's not for them, and then they bounce. And truth be told, I think in any industry, if you want to go in, clock in at 9, clock out at 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, and then leave work separate from home, you will only get so far. If you want to climb right to the top, the MDs, the partners, they take work with them home. They're thinking about it. The stuff that they're reading outside of work is to do with work. And those are the people that get to the top. And so a lot of students want to go into finance because it pays lots. But if you don't love it, you're not going to climb. It's simple as that.
Exactly. And this idea that you are working 16-hour days and more lifts given live executions and deals. Yeah. And then you ask yourself, well, why on earth would I spend any minute longer than I should? Yeah. And the whole concept is exactly that, your passion and the love for it, and actually how much value you can add. Can you see yourself going all the way? Yeah. And also in this day and age with so many opportunities now, especially in the startup world, there's just so much that can be done. And I think there has been, in the last year or so, a move away from the 9 to 5 in general, and especially flexibility now, a potential 4-day work week coming in. But it's a really cool segue to go from your time in finance to making a decision to leave that behind. And I'm really curious to hear your thought process and why you left, and what was your first step when you quit the job? Yeah,
so first things first, like when you come from a Bengali raised household, like you grow up knowing the value of money. So when you graduate and your starting salary is 50k base salary when the average UK income is 25k, you're like, oh crap, like I'm making good money. And also I was living at home, so I was saving tons of money. So rule number one, save as much money as you can, build a little nest egg. Because I knew, like, when I went into finance, I looked, simple rule for anyone working, like look at your seniors, people 5, 10, 15 years ahead of you. If there's anyone that's inspiring and inspirational and you look at and you're like, yeah, I want to be like that person, then stay in your seat, you're on that trajectory, right? If you look around and people are stressed or people hate their jobs or you don't resonate with anyone's journey or anyone's destination, then maybe you're in the wrong place, because you're going to end up where they are in 5, 10 years. If you value the money, great, but life is short. And when you're 22, 24, 25, 26, that's the time to take that career. Right now, I wouldn't take that career risk because, you know, like I'm a lot older and I've got a lot more responsibilities, right? But at the time I was 25 and I was like, if I leave the industry now, if I leave Goldman's now, I'll give myself 2-3 years to do my own thing. And it's not like I'm going to leave and figure it out. I had a plan, right? If it works, great. If it doesn't work after 2 or 3 years, and I could give myself 2 or 3 years because I, you know, saved the amount of money I needed, and I was making money on the side as well, right? If it doesn't work out, I've got Goldman's on my CV. So I was fortunate that I had Goldman's, right? So I've got Goldman's on my CV. I can always go back into Goldman's in a different role maybe, or I could go into JP Morgan, Bank of America. There's 100 different investment banks that I could go into, right? If I can't, and worst case scenario, if I can't get into front office, I'll happily go into the back office, do 2 years, move into the front office. Like my CV was good enough that I was confident that I'm 25, I'll give myself till 28 to take this career risk. And I think it's not for everyone, you know, but it got to a point where I was going into work and I was like, what the flip am I doing here? I was just, I don't want to say depressed, but I hated waking up going into work. I was like, this ain't what, like, I'm bored basically. And I looked internally at moving to different areas, different roles, but it was just nothing for me because I had this burning desire to do content creating, entrepreneurship, and explore. The one question that did it for me was, if I don't do this, in 30 years time, will I regret not doing it? And it goes back to Jeff Bezos. He goes, regret minimization framework. Always on big decisions in your life, ask yourself, when you're 80, ask yourself, would you regret not making this decision or saying yes or no? If you're going to regret it, then do it. And I was like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. I would regret not leaving. So long way to answer your question. That's it. Yeah.
A good way to answer the question. I resonate very much with will you regret it, to the extent where also I like to think as extreme as your deathbed, and is this something that I will regret not going? And like you said, 25, 26, it's a great time to explore.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think people underestimate the need to, they overestimate the need to stay in finance, and they underestimate the ability to, if you were to go explore something else, just how open that door is to come back in a variety of roles. And employees appreciate that you've tried and actually taken that risk too.
Exactly. I think also people are scared. So I understand that I'm very privileged to have been in that position to make that decision to leave the industry and do my own thing. That's a very privileged position to be in. But I do think starting out in finance, when graduates earn a high salary, it's a double-edged sword, because it's great, you're earning lots of money, but it's harder to leave it. So it's like, if you take that risk and leave a high package, you're leaving lots on the table, and people are scared of that risk, right? So it's like, okay, if I leave this high salary and take this risk, my salary is going to cut in half or whatever. And so it forces people to stay in the industry. So it's harder to leave. And that's true. The more senior you get, the more locked in you get, right? When you're a VP or MD, whatever, a lot of your pay package is paid in stock that you can unlock 2 or 3 years down, right? It vests over time. And so it's harder to leave, because now if you leave now, you're giving up 200 grand in stock. And by then you've got a mansion and a mortgage, whatever, but you're tired. So it's harder. The longer you leave it, the harder it is to leave. That's why I tell people, break in. It's a great opportunity, solid exit opportunities. You earn good money, stack as much money as you can, and then after between 2 to 5 years, leave if you're bored of it, and explore different things. And then if it don't work out, you can always come back.
Yeah, someone once told me beware of golden handcuffs,
Yeah,
which is very easy.
exactly.
And this idea of a lifestyle adjustment of it's very easy to all of a sudden upgrade your flat,
Yes.
or why not lease a car and then go on holiday. And then if you're used to that way of living, actually a lot of the content I see online is, why am I doing this? Oh, well, remember that trip I've got abroad, or remember. And actually you think, well, from a purpose-driven perspective, are you sure that's a sacrifice you want to make if you're not enjoying it? But in your case, it almost sounded like a perfect storm of you becoming a little bit more disengaged with the work. You were asking the questions of what if I started my own thing, and then you also knew that you had the safety net should you to start to pursue this. So it all really worked in your favor.
Yeah, people often think I took some mad risk, right? Truth be told, it was the safest thing I ever did, because I'm a serial planner, and everything needs to be lined up before I take that decision. And so I was good with it. It just took a lot of time. I was like, dwelling on it, but then sometimes you just got to go for it. And that's it. And on the side, like CV Doctor, so this consulting business that I started is essentially me helping people with their CVs, charging them for that, and then doing one-to-one interview preparation like this. And it was making money. And I was like, all right, CV Doctor's working. That's that. And I've got, money to cover me if that fails, and once I leave Goldman's, whatever, runway, that's the term I was looking for. I've got runway of 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And I say when people hear 2 years, 3 years, they think, oh man, that's a lot of money. But really and truly, I was staying at home. So I wasn't like renting out a 5K a month place like all the people at Goldman's that wanted to stay near the office. So my costs were low. And having the upbringing I had, we knew how to make our money stretch. So being able to live within or below your means was very useful. And so, it was like I had all the green lights.
On a side note, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. You'll be doing us a massive favor. You can keep up to date with our latest content, and the bigger the podcast, the bigger the guests. It worked out really well. And then you went on, like you said, the CV Doctor and these other platforms that you've also gone on to establish. So, and content, you said you've always dabbled with content. You've always seen that as a massive plus. And also you were first mover, so to speak, in the space. So what have you learned, and what are the first thoughts that come to mind when you think post-finance and the beginning of content creation and the other sort of platforms that you've established?
I think it's interesting because when I was doing these internships and going into the industry, being a content creator wasn't a thing. It didn't exist. And so I'm in the whole content creator space and doing entrepreneurship as well with Simpley and all these other things that I'm working on. But I'm still tied to finance. I think the one thing that ties everything, all my work together, is young people, students interested in finance. Because there's the finance stuff, there's the YouTube content, finance related, Simpley helping people finance, and then students, graduates, etc. The space, I think firms could be a bit more open-minded with what they allow their employees to do. I get it, they're managing reputational risk, but every time I wanted to post something on LinkedIn, for example, I had to get sign-off. So it doesn't end up on the front page of the FT, right? I'm not sure if that answers your question, but...
Yeah, I have very similar experience when I was in investment banking. If you were to post even on a blog, anything, and it's an overlap with the direct sector or product group which you're doing, it's a reputational risk. And I guess there is probably one of the reasons why there's such almost a Chinese wall between content and finance is the fact that there are so much compliance oversight of what you can and can't post. And do you think that's a disadvantage to the finance industry in general, that they're actually missing out on content, and not just from an appeal to young people joining them, but also from a marketing perspective as well?
From a marketing perspective, yes. I think financial institutions, when Gen Z, the new younger generation, look at financial institutions, they think old. They're not with the times, basically. So from a marketing perspective, there could be a lot more done. But to be fair, if you're Goldman's or JP or Morgan Stanley, you're big, you're known, you're going to get 100,000, 200,000 applications anyway. Do you really care? So they're established. If you're a new player coming into the space, or let's say you're a fintech company, And most fintech companies now, they're very lenient and open with their marketing. They're not as restrictive or strict as compliance teams at investment banks. So I think they don't need to care, but you need to stay updated with the times because the new generation is changing, right? Not everyone is like a boomer anymore. Like the MDs in the office running the show. Everything's changing.
Hence why you had a plethora of day in the life videos at big tech companies.
Yeah.
Like it was just before the big layoffs last year, whatever it was, versus in finance. First of all, you can't because everything is confidential. But then how much can you spruce up the lifestyle of working in finance aside from a nice lunch, going to the gym, and otherwise it's just hit the desk running?
True. I think one thing, a side note, I think, you know how people talk about 12, 14, 16 hour days in banking? Back in the day, it used to be like people used to wear that as a badge of honor. But I think this new TikTok generation see that, and rightly so. They think, why on earth would you want to do that? Like, they don't see it as a badge of honor. Like, working long isn't cool. They want that flexible lifestyle, work-life balance, work from home 3-4 days a week. So that's changing a lot. I think a lot of banks, over time, I would say over the next 5 or 10 years, banks are going to see a lot less applications being submitted, or the quality of their applications, because a lot more opportunities are opening up elsewhere. And the new generation, they value different things to what, you know, my generation or the generation before valued for banking careers.
There's definitely been a move away from the work hustle culture recently. Like you said, flexibility, millennials as much as Gen Zs, questioning, especially post-COVID, what is it I want from my life? And do I want to be in an office? Do I want to be working from home? And although a lot of the institution still pushes for coming into the office and whatnot, how have you found it's benefited you going into content, having your own business, the difference in the lifestyle, the balance? Just walk me through a bit on that side.
It's benefited me hugely. I get to wake up when I want, work when I want. The thing with me, I don't really, like, people separate work and life, right? Me personally, I don't think I've got a separation between like work-life balance type of thing. It's just all intertwined and I just manage it. So when I'm recording a video on YouTube or editing or putting out content, I don't really see it like as work. Sometimes it could be a drag, don't get me wrong. Like, there's things you got to do that you don't want to do. Like, sometimes I can't be bothered to ideate a video and then set up the camera, record it, all of that. But most times I enjoy it. And like, when I realized that the lines blurred was when I paid attention to what I was reading during the workday and outside of the workday. So now, every time I'm reading something or browsing the internet, it's either going to be on content creation, entrepreneurship, YouTube, or the creator economy. And those 4 things I do throughout the workday and outside of the workday and on weekends. And so it's kind of blurred. And I think I've been able to do that because I've got this flexibility. And also, it goes without saying, not being able to be managed by someone telling me come into the office at this time, do this, do that, has huge benefits in my personal life, my relationship with my wife, my family, friends, whatever. It's just been fruitful and I've enjoyed it a lot.
Because the advantage is the seamless blend between what is your work too. Like you said, you can manage your own time and spend more time doing the things you love and that are important to you. Is there also a risk or disadvantage in, because you're starting a business and you're just on your own, you spend too much time, or you don't know when you're burning out or when you've overworked?
100%. I've experienced that probably in the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know, once or twice, where I'm like, I've worked so much and then I don't know if it's burnout, but I felt like loss of direction, or I felt kind of down, like I don't know what, like just negative. And then literally all I do, just take the next day or 2 off and then I'm ready. Like, you need a break sometimes. But I don't want to say like I'm a workaholic in that, you know, some people promote that hustle, non-stop grinding in a way that it deters your health and you're not sleeping enough or all of that. I don't promote that. I like working a lot, but I understand also that, you know, I've got other people in my life. I need to make time for everyone. And I really enjoy going and playing board games with my mates or in-laws, whatever. So I make time for that. But yeah, having that flexibility does have its downsides, in that, sometimes you can work too much, get carried away. But I would rather have the flexibility than not.
I'm still figuring that out. And another really cool talking point and food for thought was one of the recent episodes on Diary of a CEO with Alex Hormozy.
Yeah.
And him saying he just works all the time because he loves to work. But
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, for me, I will switch off and watch Netflix and I won't be doing things productive all the time. And I do see great value in actually switching off. And I'm grateful for experiences of, first of all, an amazing time in finance and banking, but also learning when things did get tough, just how much I would have liked to stop or allow myself to stop. And I think as a startup founder and having established all these great platforms, have you learned more lessons and also learned those lessons quicker than you would have in the industry?
Yeah, 100%. Doing your own thing, managing your own time, working for yourself, and essentially, being a solo entrepreneur, for example, means you get to do 100 different things, learn 100 different things, and do it 100 times faster than you would if you were an employee at a company. Because when you're an employee at a company, you have a set path, set trajectory that everyone does, everyone follows, and when it's the right time, you get promoted. With me, it's like try 100 different things. Some might work, some might not, and then move on. Take the learnings and move on. And that's it. So you learn a lot more. I was going to say one thing about stress when working. I realized, like, when I stress out, and this goes back to another, I'm quoting Jeff Bezos too much today, but he says basically, we don't stress over working too much. And I felt this resonated with me. We don't stress over working too much. We stress over when we know we could be doing something or working on something, but we aren't doing it. So for example, right now, like I'm working on a project, right? And so when I'm not working on it, I feel guilty. And I start stressing out when I'm like, doing something else and not working on it. And so that's like a lot of my stress comes from not working on things when I should be doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the frustration involved.
Yeah, like I know I could do it, I should be doing it, but I'm not doing it. That stresses me out. Rather than I'm working so much, I won't get stressed from working so much.
And it's a new world because as you're the one in charge, you don't have someone tell you what you can and can't do or shouldn't. You're working out for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One other point on that, you reminded me. So being a solo entrepreneur or working for yourself, if you don't work, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
So I am earning a living, getting paid directly based on the value I'm putting out in the world. And so sometimes I take a day off. I'm like, nah, I'm not feeling it today. I'm going to write the day off, chill in bed, whatever. Very rarely, I can't lie. But sometimes you got to do that for your mental health, whatever. And then next day you're back at it. But if I did that too often, I won't be earning a living. Then I'm going to have to go back into the industry. So that's a big factor that people need to understand. If you're going to do your own thing, you need to understand there's a lot of pressure. You need to earn a living from it. And that requires you to be consistent and put out good stuff.
The Investment Banker course by Financial Edge Training helped me to secure a full-time role in investment banking. During my third year at university, I came across the Investment Banker online course by Financial Edge Training. This equipped me with the valuable skills needed to succeed in investment banking, such as financial modeling, valuation, and analytical skills. By enrolling in the course, you can get the same training as new hires to the top investment banks, with our instructors being ex-finance professionals from the likes of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Barclays. When you pass the course, you'll be awarded with a CPD-accredited micro-degree certificate, which can easily be added to your LinkedIn profile. This will demonstrate your achievement to top Wall Street banks, helping you to stand out from other candidates in your applications. Get started now, just like I did with the Investment Banker by Financial Edge Training. And that leans well in towards what you're actually currently establishing now with Simpley, which is a fantastic platform, having had a look in terms of connecting those who are seeking advice, help, resources to those who have that. And I'd be very grateful if you could share a bit more on why, what it is.
So Simpley is a funny story. So previously I mentioned CV Doctor. So that was me consulting people one-to-one. Quickly realized this isn't really scalable, right? It's limited to me. How can I scale this? So that's the birth of Simpley happened. It was like get people who are in the industry to mentor, teach, what have you, people who want to break into the industry. So rather than it being me who's only got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I can have other people doing it as well. So it scales the business. Initially, I wanted to make it into a mobile app. So reached out to a friend. He got software developers from Serbia to build the app. And one thing I realized, if people aren't on it 100%, it's never going to work. And I was the only one. It was my kind of baby, right? And it was my idea. And they were doing this part-time, but they had their own jobs, which is fair. You've got your priorities and stuff. And so we launched the app, and it was paid at the time. So you would pay to do a video call with people. It was all right. Proof of concept worked. The idea was there. But then the team, it wasn't like when I needed fixes on the app, it was just taking too long. So I thought, all right, scratch that. I'm going to take this and run with it on my own. I'm going to build it. I'm going to learn to build it. I'm not a software engineer. I'm going to learn to code or no code it on my own. So I spent the next year or two learning to build it with no code. So right now, if you go on Simpley.io, the website, you see all of that. I built that, but it didn't take a line of code. It's a platform that you can build stuff, no code. Now, it's a free platform, and the idea is I want to help people from similar backgrounds to me, free school meals, low-income households, etc., be able to access free mentorship from people who are in the industry. So it's going well. And then it comes to a point, all right, how can I monetize it? It's a business, right? It's not charity, it's a business. And then I thought, and if there's one thing I've learned about entrepreneurship through the last 4 or 5 years, is the first idea is never it. You're going to have 10, 11 different ideas, and you're going to need to learn to pivot. So Simply pivoted a few times. And right now where it's at is it was meant to be, all right, there'll be the mentorship piece, free mentoring on the side. But what I want to do is get companies to host insight events, webinars, with the growing audience, because we've got 4,000 or 5,000 people on the mailing list. Leverage that for companies, and so Effie was one of them. They were Effie backed it, so I appreciate that. They jumped on, did a few webinars, and the demand is there. But I'm slowly realizing that it's going to take a lot of work to get 50, 100, 200 companies on board. So right now where I'm at with Simply, it's there. People are doing the free video calls, but I've parked the corporate side of it, landing corporate clients to grow it. And I'm just going to focus in the next maybe month or two, just focus on building the community. I want to get the community to 10,000, 15,000 members and then hit it, because from speaking to the banks and people in the industry, they want larger numbers of candidates who are available, and then Simply will move ahead. So right now it's going to be parked and just grow as a community, either on LinkedIn or something. And then I'm working on something I'm going to launch in the next month as well, which is exciting, and the YouTube content. YouTube is like a full-time job in itself, but I don't want to do YouTube full-time because that's just too stressful. You just end up focusing on views and all of that. So I like having YouTube 1 or 2 days a week, and then doing my entrepreneurial ventures, whatever they may be, for the rest.
I was going to ask, how do you balance all these ventures at the same time, and do you find joy in balancing all of them?
I love it. I've learned, now the beauty of this journey is an idea comes to my head, I can build it now. I can market it now because I've got people on platforms, and I think I've got a good eye for design now. So I enjoy it. How do I balance it? Balancing can be quite tricky sometimes, but I try and have hard, all right, don't spend more than 2 days on YouTube, and the rest of the time work on whatever project I'm working on. And I'm okay working weekends, working early if I need to, because I enjoy it. I see all this stuff, I see it as I hate the term passion project, but I genuinely see it as things that I enjoy doing. And the way I learned that I have this energy for it is I love coming up with something and then being able to make money from it. The internet is a beautiful place, right? And only now, in this day and age, it's become a lot easier to come up with an idea and add value to the world and get paid for it, rightly so. And so I like doing that. I see it as a game, let me create something, put it out there. If people gain value from it, they're going to pay me for it. And I just enjoy that.
There's a lot of opportunity in there.
There's a lot of opportunity, yeah.
The recent movements in things like AI and the ChatGPT, content creation, I guess it's also, there's probably going to be soon a flight to quality after realizing all this mass content coming out.
Yeah.
I think also just focusing on quality, and I think having you been there for the last few years in the content space, you got to see that journey of where it's going, and you know your strengths. And actually, one point I wanted to touch on is it's great that Simply is part of your mission
Yeah.
to help people break into finance and backgrounds like yourself. And that really feeds into this idea of diversity and inclusiveness.
Yes.
And that is a two-sided coin, because one, it gets talked about a lot, but on the other side, does it get talked about for the sake of getting talked about, and what are companies and people really doing about it? I'm just really keen to hear your thoughts on the matter, not just in the world of finance, but beyond potentially as well.
Yeah, so now I guess it used to be diversity and inclusion, and now it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Or there's so many different terms you can never. It's always tricky to keep up to date, but I think, like, to me, diversity, equity, inclusion is like feeling welcome in the workplace, allowing people from all types of walks of backgrounds, gender, race, socioeconomic backgrounds, whatever it is, to have a seat at the table and be heard. I think the finance industry has been doing a lot of work in the space over the past decade or so. All industries are paying a lot of attention to it. I think some companies just do it to pay lip service to DE&I or D&I, whatever you want to call it, because it looks good for them, it's marketing. Some players are more serious, they care about it, and it shows through the initiatives that they set up. I think in general, it's good for the people that it's hoping to serve, because it means a kid from a working class background has more opportunities now than they might have in my time. So yeah, I think it's good. It's good all round. Good for the applicants, good for the industries, good for the firms. And a lot of research and data says, a diverse team will lead to better results, more profitability for companies. So yeah, it's good.
Do you think diversity is embedded within culture, or if it hasn't in the past, how easily can it become embedded in a culture, and how quickly as well?
Diversity, or the lack of diversity, is definitely embedded in culture. For example, if you've got an organization that has only hired from elite institutions and only one race from those institutions, the culture is going to lack diversity. So it has to be embedded from an early stage, right from the grassroots, right from the hiring of interns, or even before that, when companies are going into schools. If you've got someone that will relate to the kids you're going to talk to about, what your employees do, take someone that they can relate to. So, like, this is why on YouTube, I try and be, like, in general, I try and be my authentic self. So people like the brown kid from, the council estate at the other side of the screen sees me and he's like, oh, if Afzal can go into this industry and be himself and do this now, why can't I give it a shot? So that's how I see it.
It's a big part, isn't it? Looking up to people who you want to emulate. And if you can't see many people in that position, you start questioning whether it's the right path for you, in a sense. I had a story from one of my very close friends who, after university, went to his first finance conference as part of his role. He was the only non-white male in the building, and how shocking that can be. And I think now is the question a very active approach to any existing policies in place? What is it to do with recruitment as opposed to other elements as well? Do you think where to start, really?
This is the thing. A lot of people think it starts at the top. So most DE&I initiatives at any big company, it will get the attention of the senior professionals, but they forget the people at the bottom, like the analysts, the interns, the executive assistants. They kind of get brushed aside, but really and truly, you have to have a conversation with people from all rungs of the ladder, because they're going to have different perspectives, and they'll offer something different to the conversation. And then it becomes, it goes into the marketing, the hiring, human resources, and the different councils within the firm or societies that they have set up. One big one with a lot of, I think, asset managers is the Diversity Project. They do a lot of work with a lot of schools, young people, trying to help them into asset management. You've got other ones like 10,000 Black Interns. They've done a lot of work in the space. So rather than just focusing on the senior professionals, forget the hierarchy and try and listen to everyone.
Because it's very empowering as a junior being asked for your views, but not just for your views, but how can they actively help to change the culture, the attitudes, the communications as well, the awareness. I think it's all part of the parcel, really, and it's great to see that it is moving and it's accelerating too, and it's also really positive to just have open conversations about that. And even towards the end of my time in finance, it was good to see more questions being asked, There were definitely some paradigm shifts. I think we spoke about this in the last podcast episode. Things like Black Lives Matter was a massive conversation starter and whatnot. Do you think that in its current trajectory, it's enough, or do you think more needs to be done in D&I in the finance world?
I think there's always room for improvement. There's always room for more. How you get there, I don't know. But it just, I don't know, over time, you need more diverse people in leadership positions. That would be a start.
That's a really powerful message. And actually, as we're working towards the conclusion of the podcast, for anyone out there listening to this and who was in your shoes just before finance, what would you say to them? What's your message?
This one's always, I want to sum it up nicely, but you put me on the spot. Be yourself, be your authentic self. We live in a day and age now where you can be your authentic self, and if it doesn't work out in one way or another, there'll be lots of other opportunities. But I would say between 18 and 30, work very hard. It will determine how you spend the rest of your life. And keep in mind, if you graduate or don't go to uni and you don't get the job you want, it's not the end of the world. Your careers are 45, 50 years long. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Key thing is to have a thirst for knowledge, a desire to learn, and just be action oriented. Most people aren't driven by doing things. If you're able to get things done, you'll get ahead of everyone in your year group or your cohort faster than anyone else. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
It's all good, man.
For also sharing your personal story and also the platforms you've done so far. I think you're doing amazing work in the finance industry and for content.
Yeah.
And I think not just inspiring the next generation of potential bankers and financiers, but also those who might want to consider content. So
that's a fair point as well. Explore different opportunities. I didn't know I was going to do this type of career. I love it. I enjoy it. Big shout out to FE actually, because they were actually on the YouTube channel, first sponsor of my first video. When I started getting sponsors, FE were the first, and they've worked with me for the last 4 or 5 years, which is great. So thank you and the team. Yeah.
Our pleasure. I've known FE for a while now, and it's great to see as one of the first movers who got the world of finance and content and the impact it makes. But we're just so delighted to have the likes of yourself to share your story and your message. But I'm sure our viewers would be greatly appreciative of it. Thanks again. And we're looking forward to seeing your next steps.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Afzal.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Cutting Edge. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. It helps us out so much so that we can continue to build our podcast and deliver more episodes just like this one.